Good afternoon. I'm Brian Begley with enCloud9, and thank you for coming to our webinar this afternoon on the Dynamics 365 Unified Interface. We're going to wait a couple minutes to allow a few more people to come in. In the meantime, we'll be right back. All right, we're going to start right now. Once again, my name is Brian Begley with enCloud9. I am a consultant here in Dynamics 365. We are talking today about Dynamics 365 Unified Interface, which is the newest way that Microsoft is having people view the data that they put in their Dynamics 365. First, a little bit about enCloud9. We are a Dynamics 365 CRM partner. We've been Silver Cloud Customer Relationship Management Partner since 2014, but we've been working with Dynamics 365 and Dynamics CRM for about 12 years. We primarily work with small to mid-sized business, and we help them with their sales, their marketing, and their customer service. Our focus is on companies throughout the US, and all we do is Dynamics 365. So with that, we're going to get started here. As many of you know, that Microsoft has released Dynamics 365 October 2018 release, starting in about October, early November of this year. They're being fairly aggressive about moving all existing Dynamics 365 online customers from whatever version they were on, if they were on 8.2 or 8.0, they're moving all clients to 9.0 by, I believe, January of 2019. In order to change the model of how Dynamics 365 is delivered. Dynamics 365 has been kind of rejiggered into a product called it's part of a product called the Power Platform. The Power Platform is made up of 4 primary applications: Power BI, Power Apps, Microsoft Flow, and the Common Data Service. All of these apps are used as part of Dynamics. So for example, Dynamics 365, as you'll see, is what we would now call a Power App. Power BI is a tool for surfacing data, for creating dashboards, performing business analytics. Microsoft Flow is a workflow tool that probably will eventually replace the built-in workflow tool of Dynamics 365. And the Common Data Service is the database that runs behind the scenes of Dynamics 365. Now, the Power Platform can be more than just Dynamics 365. It can be used to bring in data from many other applications and can be used for that purpose. If you're using CRM on-premise, Microsoft has just released V9 of Dynamics 365 on-premise, which will give you the ability to access all the features that we're talking about today in terms of the unified interface. So if you are currently on an older version of Dynamics 365, like 2011, or even all the way up to what we would call 8.2, please let us know. We can help you to plan and upgrade to Dynamics 365 on-premise version 9, or even begin a migration of Dynamics 365 on-premise to the online platform. We do a lot of work with customers that are looking to migrate to Dynamics 365 online from an on-premise system. So one of the changes that has happened with the recent October 2018 release and getting all of the existing customers on the online platform to version 9.0 is that Microsoft's Dynamics 365 is now going to have a constant release cycle where updates are going to be made throughout the year to your platform, sometimes without you knowing about it. Sometimes they have to be applied to your system by your administrator. So by having this cadence of applying updates regularly, Microsoft can continually have the application up to date among all of its clients. All of the users of Dynamics will be on the same application, which will make it easier for Microsoft, its partners, and for you to support. So the unified interface has been something that Microsoft has been building for about the last 3 or 4 years. It started out about 3 years ago as a new way of presenting customer service data in Dynamics 365. It was called the IUR. I can't even remember what that stands for right now. But the IUR promoted a new way of presenting Dynamics data. As you can see, I'm showing 2 screenshots here, and we're going to move into a demo of Dynamics pretty shortly. But when you're looking at Dynamics 365 on these screenshots, you see the classic web interface, which is what you see in the background with its large icons and tiles and a large menu structure that comes down off the top of the screen. As you can see in the newer unified interface, we now have moved away from a menu structure that runs off the top of the application to a menu structure that runs off the left-hand side of the screen. You'll see that there's a lot more color on this. Previously, Dynamics 365 was pretty much a black and white application. We now have color, we have shading between rows, we have color in the section headings, and we have color in our views, for example, to show different ways of showing data. It's also, as we're going to show later, this interface is responsive. So what does responsive mean? Well, what you'll see is that this interface that we're looking at here is the same interface that you'll see on mobile devices. It's also the same user interface that you'll see when you use the Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. And everything that you see on the screen will be visible on either one of those platforms. But however, if you look at this dashboard, for example, on a mobile device, it will show all the same information, but it will be adjusted to fit that device. And we'll show it. We're going to show some screenshots of a mobile application using Dynamics 365. So that's the basics of the unified interface. We're going to go in now a little more specific into each of the areas. We're going to start with views and then move into forms and just how to get around Dynamics 365 using the unified interface. Now on this screen, you'll see we're going to highlight a few of the major changes. You'll see that we've moved navigation from the left side of Dynamics, from the top of the Dynamics screen to the left side. We have our home area, we have recent, and we have pinned items. This allows you to save recently used items on here so that you'll always see the most recent records you've used. We can save those recent items with a pin so that they'll show up in our pinned items. So if I'm working on a case or a sales opportunity, I'll always have that in my pinned items. I don't have to go searching for them. We have a lot of shading between the rows to make things easier to see. I'm going to show you, we can also start showing our data in different ways. For example, I can have this view, if this was a view of my open tasks, I can have a view that shows my tasks by the in a calendar. So I can see my tasks by due date, or maybe my opportunities by my estimated close date. We also have the same buttons along the top of the ribbon. So everything works the same as it always did, and so you can still search here. We have a few new items up here in the black ribbon, and I'm going to switch now to a dynamic screen, a live screen, to show you how they work. So watch when I show here. All right. So right now I've switched to my Dynamics 365, and I'm going to kind of walk you through a few of the items that we're showing here. So here's my home screen. I have my dashboards here. I can switch back and forth between my dashboards. The dashboards display pretty much the same as they've always displayed in the past. I can make personal dashboards, and those will also display. Uh, as you'll notice, though, on the left side of my navigation, the navigation seems a lot simpler compared to the classic user interface. And that's because Microsoft has started to use the concept of a hub. And so if you look up at the top of my screen here, it says I'm currently in the Sales Hub. The Sales Hub is designed to be a version of the Dynamics 365 app that's cut down to fit the needs of a sales team. So when I go into Dynamics 365 and I access my Sales Hub, all I'm seeing is my dashboards, my activities, my tasks, my accounts, my contacts, leads, opportunities, and I also have a way to view cases. I'm not looking at marketing information. I'm not looking at all the detailed entities that are related to cases like entitlements or queues. All of that is stored in a different hub. So I'm going to show you here that if I go under my Dynamics 365 logo up at the top here, and I click my down arrow, I can see that there are other hubs available to me. So I can click on Customer Service Hub, for example, and it will take me to a hub with all the records that are related to customer service. So accounts, contacts, cases, knowledge articles, queues, and all that. So the idea behind a hub is that you build hubs for each of your teams so that they only see the information that they need to see. We're going to be having a webinar in 2 weeks on building these hubs for your users, and we'll talk about how to build those hubs so that your teams can see the information that they need to see. One of the things I really like about the hub concept, and I'm going to go back to my Sales Hub here, is with a hub, we can control what we see in terms of views. So if I go to active accounts, I can hide active account views from my customer service team that might have to do with sales information. So in classic CRM, if we have 15 different account views, I'm going to see all of those account views no matter if I'm logged in as a salesperson or a customer service person. When you have a hub, you can determine which views are available in which hub. So it allows you to create system views that are only available to users who have access to a sales hub or a customer service or marketing or whatever your hub, whatever your users' requirements are. So keeping going on here. As we go down here, I'm going to show you, we have my recent activities here. So I have a recent activity that I have a lead called Bob Webinar. Well, I'm going to be working with Bob Webinar a lot over the next few days. So I want to keep him available as a pinned item. It's pretty simple to pin an item. It's just a matter of clicking on the pin. Once I do that, Bob is moved down to my pinned items. And if I click on my pinned items, you'll see he's right here at the top of Bob Webinar. This pinning allows me to quickly go from view or record from one to another. So I can quickly go from my sales dashboard to my active cases, back to Bob Webinar, all without having to search for that information. Let's go back to my dashboard here. Dashboards look different as well. You'll notice that we have here my active cases. We have one view. We also have that this view is a special type of view that actually, because it's been resized, it's showing columns differently. So you'll see this view has 3 columns and a color-coded thing. It's the same information as my active cases here, but it shows the data in a different way than you are able to in a standard dashboard. I want to go over the top ribbon here. It works pretty much the same way. We have global search here. So I can click on this to open my global search. One thing that does go away is the ability to type your global search here. You have to, and then click on the magnifying glass. You click on the magnifying glass and it opens the search page. So now if I type Bob Webinar or webinar, it's going to show me all of Bob Webinar's the lead information and all the activities related to this lead that I have. We have another button up here which is new to Dynamics 365 on the desktop, but has been in Dynamics 365 mobile for a few years. This is task flows. I haven't really worked very much with task flows, but task flows give you a way to automate recurring tasks. So for example, I can build a task flow that says after a meeting, I want to make sure I follow up with my notes. So I click on task flow after meeting, and what it'll do is it'll bring up a view here that says, well, let's find an appointment. And so I'll find an appointment here back from 2014, and it will then give me the next button, and I can put my notes in for that. So this has mostly been a mobile process, but it's recently been moved into the user interface in the Dynamics 365 desktop app. I think in some ways this could be used as a replacement for dialogues that we previously had in Dynamics 365. Next to the task flow button, we have a button for Relationship Assistant. Relationship Assistant is a really great new feature in Dynamics 365. And what this allows me to do, when I click turn on the Relationship Assistant, it lets me know what's going on. It lets me know that I have an opportunity closing soon. I have a task that's due today. So I can go up to that task and I can mark it as complete because I've completed it already. I can see that I have an appointment scheduled, and I have a couple of opportunities right here that have passed my due date. So the Relationship Assistant allows me to stay on top in one place of a lot of information about all my most important information. So my open opportunities, which ones are closing, which ones have passed the close date. That's what's important to me, and that's what I see in my Relationship Assistant. Let's make that bigger again. Next, we have our Quick Create button. Works the same as in the older system. One thing I do like about Quick Creates in Dynamics 365 is it doesn't bring down a list of 40 or 50 potential Quick Create options. It only gives me Quick Creates based on records that are in the Sales Hub. So here I can only see accounts, and I can see cases, and I can see opportunities. So I can go here, quickly create a new account, and you'll notice Quick Create opens on the right side as opposed to along the top. I kind of like this more. It seems to be a little more in line with how it doesn't seem like it's covering up the record that I'm looking at. So Quick Create opens records on the right. Also, activities have their own category in Quick Create, and so I can Quick Create a task here. One of the things I didn't like about the Dynamics Classic is a lot of times when you use Quick Create on an activity, it would actually open the full record. There really wasn't a Quick Create form. In Dynamics 365, Microsoft seems to have gotten Quick Create forms working right for all the activity records. We have our options, and we have support, question, help here button. That's all we have there. So that is basically Dynamics 365's from the dashboard and from the viewpoint of Dynamics 365 unified interface. Now we're going to go in our next thing, we're going to start talking about how forms have changed in Dynamics 365. So to do that, we're going to switch back to my PowerPoint real quick. All right, so we're looking at a slide here that talks about how the unified interface forms have changed for Dynamics 365 9.0. When we're looking at this form, you'll see there is, just like on the views, there's more color, there's subtle shading, as opposed to in the previous versions, there was just a giant sea of white, made it very difficult to see where we needed to go, where information might be placed. We have a larger font, we have lines between fields that help break up the data as well. We have tabs now. Previously, in older versions of CRM, we used to have tabs. Now we're back with tabs once again. This gets you away from the dynamic CRM forms that constantly scroll all the way to the bottom. It takes a while, and then you have to scroll back. You can quickly click on the different tabs here to see the information on each one of these tabs. The best new feature, I think, in Dynamics 365 in 9.0 is this consolidated timeline. From this one timeline, you can see all sorts of information related to these records. So under this contact, I can see posts, I can see appointments, I can create a note, I can see the notes, I can see OneNote information from in here. In our older versions, we had to go into CRM. We had to click on the different tabs in our timeline in order to see the activities in one tab, the posts in another, the notes in another. Relationship Assistant might be in another tab. Right now, it's all in one place, all right in front of you. Also, this timeline, you can change how the information is sorted. Usually, you can sort by modified on date, created on date, due date. We'll show you how to do that in our demo. That's one of the other things. You can also filter in here what type of records you're seeing in this. So let's switch back to my CRM instance and walk through a form here. So I have a lead that I created for this webinar called Bob Webinar. Now we're looking at Bob's record here, and what you'll notice is that my left-hand navigation stays open while I'm here. This is a new feature that's, if you're already using Unified Interface, is being rolled out over the month of December. You can't, because previously you only had a list of icons here. And if you're getting used to the unified interface, it's kind of hard to determine where I'm at. You start learning that, for example, this icon here represents a contact, this icon represents an account. But by allowing you to open and close the sitemap, by clicking on the hamburger right here, you can change from viewing the list of all your menu, or you can turn the menu off so that you can focus on the record that you're looking at. So we're looking at Bob Webinar. This is a lead, so there's a sales process associated with this. Here's another great feature of the unified interface is that the sales process ribbons take up a lot less space than they used to. So I'm in the qualify stage. If I want to look at the qualify stage and see what I've done and what I have to finish, I would click on it and it would open up and drop down to say, here's the information that we have in the qualify. We have purchase time frame, the budget, the process, have we identified the decision maker, and have we captured a summary of data. Now this might not be enough space. You might actually want to see the items in your sales process. So now what you can do is you can dock them. You click on this icon here and it docks the sales process to the right side of the screen, so that I could go in here and I could click to identify the decision maker. I can capture my summary of my conversations about what this client or this prospect is looking for. I can then close this when I'm finished, and that's basically how you work with business processes in the unified interface. You're going to notice on the contact record that we don't have what we called consolidated fields in older versions, and this is one thing I'm not as happy about. It used to be we could have one field where we would be able to put the person's name. We would click on that field and it would fly out, and I would put in the first name and the last name. Those don't exist in the unified interface. I hope they're coming. I haven't heard anything that they're coming. I like them. So I hope they come in because they save a lot of space. Here we're showing that there are 3 lines for the first, middle, and last name, whereas previously that would take up 1 line of our form. I have the same issue with address fields. If you'll see here, our address fields, we don't have those consolidated fields available. So I'm showing all the lines of my address. It's taking up 6 lines, whereas previously it took up maybe 1 or 2 lines. So I hope that these fields do come back to Dynamics 365 and the unified interface soon, because I do think they add a lot of value to people and they help make the form look better in my mind. We do have maps in Dynamics 365 here, just like we do. So, but they've also been enhanced in the unified interface. I can now choose a standard road map, an aerial map. I can choose a bird's eye map to show me what I'm looking at. I can also change to a street side map so I can view street side, what we're looking at here. They must not have that. Here we go. There we go. That might take a little bit more to load up. Oh, I have to actually click where I want the street side to show me. So we can go in these maps in just like in a Google map or a big map and move forward and move back. And we can see Swift and Walensky's right there. All right, so that's mapping, pretty much a nice new feature. It doesn't really give you the ability to click on this map and open a Bing map for further data, for like to get directions, but it is there, and there are other tools that you can do that with. I'm going to show you a couple other features here on the form record. We're looking at here the timeline. So let's talk about the timeline. So this replaces the old activity control. And like I said, from here we can do a lot of things without having to click from tab to tab. I can create a note. So I can say this is a new note. And I can type that note. And I can attach a document. So I'm going to attach a document here. And I can add that note. It shows in my timeline, once it's been done refreshing, it's showing that I have a note that was added here. I can then start adding my activities. So let's add a phone call here. So I click on the plus button and I click phone call. You'll see the quick create phone call form now comes up over here. I want to type my topic of the phone call, follow up. And I can schedule this phone call off into the future. So I'm going to say I want to call Bob on December 14th. It defaults to midnight. So I want to change that. Otherwise, I'm going to get a notification at midnight. I'm going to change that to 2 p.m. And I'm going to save. I can also create another phone call while I'm in here. Let's say I want to do another follow-up phone call based on this. So I can click Save and Create New and create a second phone call. Now in my timeline, it shows me that I have a phone call coming up. It tells me when these records are due. So I see this is a phone call that's coming up. Here's something that happened today, and it would show me other records that happened in the past. Okay. I can add other records. I can add emails. I can add phone calls. I can add tasks. I can add some other records. I could add notes, and I can create a post on this record. I could also filter what I see by clicking on the three dots here, and I click on Open Filter Pane. When I open the filter pane, it gives me a lot of information. It says so far we have 10 different activities against this customer. 2 of them are notes, 1 of them is a post, and 7 are activities. I also look at this and I show that I'm showing 3 completed activity, or sorry, 3 of these activities. 3 are open, 4 are currently closed. And then I can click on Show More Filters, and I could say, well, let's filter that. I just want to see that information based on phone calls. So I go and find my phone call record. This list doesn't appear to be in alphabetical order. And it's going to filter it based on, so that when I'm looking at my timeline, I'm only seeing phone calls. And it's showing that I have 1 phone call that happened 2 hours ago, and then I have another phone call that I just created just now. And so that's the major changes that you see to the lead form and to the timeline. I want to show you some other nice features that I've found in the unified interface, and you'll see these are over here on the right side. So over here on the right side, we are now able to add new controls to Dynamics 365 to make our information on our forms more visual. So one of the things we do when we talk to a new customer is we want to find out how many seats of Dynamics that they have in their current implementation. So we now have the ability to click on this and just drag this bar up to say 52 is their estimated seat count. These are controls that we can add to existing fields. So this is estimated seat count is a whole number field, and we have said when we display this whole number field on a form, we're going to use this gauge. to drive how this information is displayed. In the same way, we, on our budget amount form field, this is a dollar field, we can use this arc control to show different amounts of what that number is at. These arc controls and these controls, they can be used for number fields. They can be used to show where you're at in terms of hitting a goal. So these controls can be used to show a lot of information in a very visual way, a lot faster than having to look at them on a look up just more numbers. We also, with yes, no fields, we've added this simple slider control to allow us to quickly go from yes to no, or whatever the values are. I like these a lot. With a option set, like a rating field, we can choose our option set by just clicking on the value. Now, I think this only works with option sets that are 3 values or less. So that's one gotcha with these option sets. But there's a lot more of these custom controls that you can start adding to your screens. Okay. One thing I want to go back to our view here, because I kind of mentioned this when I was showing you the views. So here's a view of my tasks. Let's say I want to see this in a calendar format. I would go in here. I'm in my view of tasks. I have to customize CRM to show it this way, but it's a very fast update to it. I click on my 3 dots and I go to Show As. When I go to Show As, it says, what do you want to do? A read-only grid or a calendar control? I'm going to choose calendar control. And when I do calendar control, it shows me my tasks on a calendar. It defaults to week. I'm going to switch it to month. And it's going to show me these are my current open tasks that I have to do by the due date. So if somebody were to add a new task on my calendar, it would show me on here, and I could quickly look at my calendar. I can click on that task, and I can open up that task and close that task and mark it complete, or do the work that it's required. Also, like one of the things we showed you was an opportunity. So my open opportunities, I can have a calendar for those that shows me my open opportunities by estimated close date. So I can show by day, by week, by month. Just a quick way of showing data in Dynamics that previously it was just the only way you could see it was on a long list. When you can see this data in a calendar versus a grid, you can easily tell what are your priorities, and just really highlights this sort of stuff for you. All right, so I'm going to keep moving on. There's a couple other things I wanted to show you. I'm going to go back to that lead here that we were working with. So we were working with Bob. So I'm going to click on my leads here. I'm going to open up Bob Webinar. Now, let's say I'm working with Bob Webinar and I want to switch to another lead that's in my active leads. I can click on this button here in the left corner. It's an arrow pointing to the right. And what will come up is my view of all my open leads. So I can quickly go from one lead to another lead to another lead. And I can keep this view pinned up so it stays here while I'm in the lead records. So I really like this. It really makes it easy. I don't have to switch back between the form I'm in and the view of leads. So this is available everywhere. So if I go into my contact list and I open up a contact, when I open up that contact, once again, I have my little view button right here. It opens up that view, and I can quickly scroll through my view records that I have in CRM, or my contacts in CRM. That's most of the changes I wanted to show you on how Dynamics 365 Unified Interface works within CRM. I kind of want to show you just a couple more things after this, just how the unified interface works in Outlook, and also how the unified interface works in a mobile device. So let's do that. To do that, first I'm going to start my Outlook here. So when I open up my Outlook, if you've installed the new Dynamics 365 app for Outlook, you will have a button in your upper right corner that says Dynamics 365 up on your ribbon in Outlook. Now, I can go to any sort of record here. So here's a record that comes from, we're going to say this came from Bob Webinar. Bob Webinar it's tied to his email address, even though it says Brian Begley, because it's using my personal email address. Here's where the unified interface really starts working for your end users. Right now, I'm seeing this email is tied to a lead called Bob Webinar, or it could be tied to a contact because they both have the same email address. I can pull my scroll bar over here, and I can start seeing Dynamics 365 data. I can click on here, and I'm presented with my menu of all of my information. So I can click here and click on accounts. And so I can start seeing all my accounts in CRM. I can go to my leads here as well. So here's my open leads. So I can start opening records and working in Dynamics 365 inside of Microsoft Outlook, just like as if I was using the older heavy Dynamics 365 Outlook application that we've had for many years. I just think this is such a better experience. I think it will make your users more productive. And we are having a webinar on this next week. We'll be sending you a link to that webinar on best practices for using Dynamics 365 with Outlook for the Outlook app. So the final thing I wanted to show you in today's webinar is how Dynamics 365 works in a mobile device. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to call up my iPhone on the screen here. I use an app called Air Server, so I just have to start it up here. And it's just going to start mirroring my iPhone. So I'm going to call up Dynamics 365. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. We'll get to them when as we wrap up the webinar. So please feel free to put any questions you might have. So right now I'm in my Outlook. I'm in my Dynamics 365 app in my iPhone. If I click on the button there, it brings up my menu. You'll notice this is the same Sales Hub menu as we had when I'm viewing Dynamics 365 on the browser. I can switch, like let's say I'm not doing a sales call, but I'm actually doing a customer service call from my phone. I can switch to the customer service hub from my mobile device, and that will bring up the customer service hub with my cases, with my knowledge articles, with my queues, and all of that. We're going to switch back to the sales hub. Oop, I hit the wrong button there. I went to the voice of the customer hub. There it is, Sales Hub. So if I go into the Sales Hub, you'll see I am in my lead record for Bob Webinar. I can just scroll through. It's the same user interface. The business process flow ribbon across the top works the same way. You can't pin that down, obviously, because there's not enough space. But it looks the same as if I was on my web form. So what does that tell you? It tells me that when we're training our users how to use Dynamics 365 on the desktop, at the same time we're training them how to use it on a mobile device, since it's all one similar, exact same interface between the two of them. Okay. So that's the last thing I wanted to show you in Dynamics 365. A couple questions I might want to talk about here is kind of, I'm going to just bring this PowerPoint up on my other screen here. All right. Okay. All right, so you should be seeing my PowerPoint here. This is my slide about the Outlook and mobile experience. We talked about all of this, that the same unified interface that you now have on your web client is the same unified interface that you see in Outlook and that you see on your mobile devices. So it all looks the same, it all works the same, it doesn't have the same issues that we had in the past where the mobile device looked very different from what you would see when you were using CRM on your desktop. So if you want, we are, like I said, we're having a webinar next week on how best practices of using the new Outlook app with your Dynamics 365. So a couple gotchas with the unified interface. There's a few that are still left. Microsoft has done a lot over the last few months to make the unified interface work better. A couple months ago, we didn't have a lot of things like advanced finds, but slowly Microsoft is adding all those functions, and that's what's making it time to start thinking about moving to the new unified interface. But here's a couple of the gotchas that we've been able to find. We still can't run any on-demand workflows from the unified interface. We can't do our application customization. So if you're a customizer of CRM, you still need to use the classic web interface to do that customization. Certain features use what's called the hybrid experience. So we're looking at this record merging here. You'll notice the record merging looks like the old classic web record merging form. Microsoft has not yet updated these to make them appear as if they are part of the new unified interface. So I know they're working on that. It's just going to take some time over the next few months for them to release that. Also, Advanced Find also still looks like a classic web interface when you're using it. So migrating to the unified interface. Here at enCloud9, we have been migrating to the unified interface over the last month or so. It started when we deployed the Outlook app to our system so that we were beginning to use the Outlook app and replace the older Microsoft Outlook application that worked with CRM. That was our first introduction. It started us to be able to use these new forms. We started designing our forms so that they looked best in the unified interface. I would recommend for most companies to start with a small group of users. For example, one business team, build a hub for them. Build a hub that matches their sales processes. See how they use it. See what changes they need to make. See what entities you want to display, because there might be a couple iterations of creating the right hub. But I'll tell you, building hubs is pretty easy to do, and you can follow us up on our third webinar on that. So in my mind, that's the best way to do it, is switching to the Dynamics 365 Outlook app, and then just start by moving a small group of users to the unified interface to get started. I've got a couple of resources here for users who want to learn more about this. We have a couple events coming up. If you go to enCloud9.com, about enCloud9/events, you'll see we have our Outlook app and our Building Power Apps and Hubs event coming up. Best resource that you can find out there is Microsoft's release notes that are stored at docs.microsoft.com. Take a look at those. There'll be a lot of information that will help you to work your way through building your first hub to making sure this works for your users. Always a great resource is the community website for dynamics.com. That's hosted by Microsoft. You can ask questions that'll be answered by experts. You can post your blogs. You can read blogs by other people who are using Dynamics 365. enCloud9 posts their blog at the community website. You can always reach me at Brian Begley at bbegley@encloud9.com. Here's my LinkedIn profile. You can contact me as well through LinkedIn. and just feel free to get a hold of me. So that's all I wanted to share today. It's taken about 45 minutes to get to this point. If there are any questions that anybody has in the audience, I'm going to look at the list here in GoToWebinar. And we have one question here. Hang on. And the question was, when will the unified interface be available for on-premise instances? So here's the answer to that, that with the release of 9.0, which is available from Microsoft for on-premise systems, you will have the unified interface that you see here today on the screen. So you can go out there, begin the process, test that out to see if it's time, if it works for your CRM, if it's time to upgrade to 9.0. There's a lot of great features in 9.0 that make worth upgrading, and I think the unified interface is one of them. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much then today for attending the webinar. Feel free to get a hold of me, Begley at enCloud9, if you have any questions. Thank you for attending, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.